Hi everyone, and welcome to the Fresh Performing Arts Project. My name is Chantal, and today I am here with Sid Brisbane. He is actor extraordinaire, has been in every show you can think of on our television, but has also done a whole heap of stage productions as well. I'm really excited to speak with this wealth of knowledge. So welcome to Sid.
Hello, Chantal. Very good to be here.
Awesome. So I want to start from the beginning for you.
Yes.
And so what exactly spurred you to become an actor? Is it a very young age or?
Yeah, pretty young. About 15, I was at a tech school in Shepparton and I really wanted to be in the Air Force, actually. So I came to a school in Melbourne to do year 11 and 12 and specialise in science. So I could get into the Air Force. But it was at that school that the first production we ever did was One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, with a terrific director, and he sort of inspired me to see what the world of theatre was like. But I was a bit nervous that a career in acting wasn't going to be sort of viable financially or provide enough stability. So I still wanted to be in the Air Force, but in year 12, I found out that my deafness in my left ear was 100% deaf. So the Air Force wouldn't take me. So then this director and I looked at career options and where you could do training. And I ended up doing training at Flinders University in Adelaide.
Right.
For 3 years. So that's where I started, and that's how I started to become an actor.
So I had no idea that you had deafness in one ear.
Yeah, completely 100% deaf in my left ear.
So how does that affect your work?
I pretty much, when I can, always position myself, that's my good ear. So I try and get everybody on my good side.
Yeah.
I'll always be sneaking to the left of people so that my bad ear is out of play, if you like. But I'm pretty aware. I'm aware of what's going on, of my surroundings. My right ear's got exceptionally good hearing. I think I can lip read a bit, and the only time it really affects me is if somebody quietly comes up over that shoulder behind me and I'm not aware they're there and they speak very quietly to me. But I don't really feel that it's affected my career.
No, well, obviously not. Like, the amount of work you've done is crazy. What would you say would be one of your highlights? Because your bio is about 600 pages long. And so to pick out the best bit.
I suppose a recent highlight was Stateless, the 6-part series on Netflix and ABC about asylum seekers, where I played one of the prison guards. So because of the subject matter, that's a matter dear to my heart. I used to be involved with a group in the early 2000s called Actors for Refugees, telling refugee stories and raising money for the Asylum Seekers Resource Centre. So that's sort of got a special place in my heart, that story. So that's a recent highlight, but a lot of highlights, to do with working with Aboriginal theatre groups or travelling with shows, travelling overseas. So I did a film with Rolf de Heer in 1994 called Epsilon, and we travelled all over Australia and we went to the States to film as well. And then because of that, one of his producers was an Italian producer, and because of that, he asked me if I would be interested in going to Costa Rica for 3 months to do 6 telemovies for Italian TV.
Wow. Really?
So that was one of the highlights. Then there's a writer called Howard Barker who has a company in England called the Wrestling School. And I'd worked with a company in Adelaide that had done Howard Barker's plays. Yeah. He's quite an exceptional writer. And then we did an 8-hour play for the Adelaide Festival in 2000 was a co-production between his company in England, our company in Adelaide. We came together and we did 5 shows, and it lasted for 8 hours.
Wow.
And
What
I
was
got
the
in touch
reasoning
with
for
them.
that?
Sorry?
What was the reasoning behind that, doing an eight-hour play, if you don't mind me jumping in? Sorry.
Well, you can do that. You can only really do that in festivals.
Yeah.
And it was just because it was an epic story
Okay, right.
called The Ecstatic Bible. There were 3 breaks, so it was 6.5 hours of performance. You had 2 intervals and a meal break for 45 minutes.
Wow.
But, you know, they were a great company. I knew his work and the actors were so fantastic.
Mm.
I said, I'd love to come and work with your company in England. And they said yes.
Right.
So in the year 2000, I went over to England and worked with that company. And we toured around England, and we also went to Dublin Fringe.
Mm-hmm.
And then I came back to Australia, and in 2004, Sydney Theatre Company were doing a Howard Barker play called Victory, directed by Judy Davis. And I thought, because of my history with the company, with Howard's work, I thought, oh, this is my best opportunity to work with Sydney Theatre Company. So I got in touch with them.
Yeah.
And I got an audition. And Judy Davis is a bit of one of my heroes, you know, incredible actress. She was directing as well as acting. And I remember coming into the audition room, and I was almost like a camera above myself. I was going, oh my God, I'm holding out my hand. I'm shaking her hand.
Yeah.
And then she says to me, do you know the work of Howard Barker? And I say, well, yes, I do. I've done 4 of his productions, and 2 were directed by him, and 1 was with his company in England.
Mm.
And she goes, oh my God, what's he like? What's he like? And she said, and what's the company like? How do they work? What's their method? And so we were just raving, you know, and then she said, look, I suppose we better do an audition.
Yeah.
What role do you want to go for? And I said, well, I suppose the 2 lead roles are already cast.
Mm.
And she said, yes, they are. And then we did an audition, and I got the gig. And because it was the first time she'd performed live on stage for 20 years, it was sold out. It was sold out every night. They used to have standing room, and it was a long run. So it went for 2 months.
Wow, it's amazing.
Which is a long run for a main stage production.
Yeah.
But the longest run I've ever done, and one of my other big highlights was, and this is the poster behind me, was very commercial theatre, was Fawlty Towers Live.
Mm-hmm.
So John Cleese was coming to Australia to do the first ever stage version of Fawlty Towers, and we did 3 episodes, and they were casting for the role of Manuel, which I got, and that was a big shock. It's a lovely shock, big surprise, and we toured all around Australia. We were supposed to go to New Zealand as well, but they had earthquakes, and so the New Zealand tour, part of the tour, got cancelled. But I suppose the highlights for me have been travelling, whether it be with work, whether it be within Australia or internationally. You know, I've seen some really remote places that you don't normally get to see. Mm-hmm. Been to a lot of Aboriginal communities with film or theatre. Mm-hmm. So I've performed on Thursday Island with outdoor Shakespeare. I've done a lot of outdoor Shakespeare, which I love. Yeah. You know, we did this amazing tour in 2005 of a rock and roll version of Much Ado About Nothing, where the company travelled in this big bus, and I had to learn how to drive the bus.
I've actually heard about that, Sid.
Yeah, I thought you would have.
Yeah.
And that was incredible. So we drove all the way from Melbourne to Darwin in this bus, and we did shows in Darwin and Tennant Creek and Thursday Island and Weipa and Cairns, Mount Isa. And it is just stunning. So
definitely a perk of the job to be able to travel and
Yeah,
see
yeah.
amazing places. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And
Fantastic.
sometimes, telling Aboriginal stories, you get fast tracked into family and you get a lot of things shared with you that probably as white fellas we don't normally get to be privy to.
Yeah, sure.
That's been a big highlight too. I did a film called Red Dog True Blue in 2015. That was in the Pilbara,
Right.
and one of the traditional owners, who was an advisor on the film, he also had a company that did tours,
Right.
and I said, look, I'd just like to come and do one of your tours. And the day I did it, there was only me and one other woman from Finland, I think.
Oh, wow.
So we had this personal tour of this area in the Pilbara from this guy who was a traditional owner, and yeah, it was incredible. So it's enriching,
Absolutely. And so when you're looking for parts or, researching parts that you're either going to go for or would love to play, is one of the things that you look at is something that you can actually connect with the material?
Yeah, absolutely. So connecting with the material, I often get asked, what do you prefer, film, TV or theatre? And my answer's always been the same. What I prefer is great writing.
Okay.
Because great writing is your basic ingredient. When you're cooking, if you don't cook with the best ingredients, it's hard to get a good product. So for me, it always starts with the script. So I read the script, and if I like the script, then you might sometimes with theatre you get offered. Just offered. You don't have to audition. You get offered roles because they've seen you in something else.
Yep.
Whereas with film and TV, you nearly always have to audition. But yeah, it always starts with reading the script, because if the writing's not good, then it's not to say you can't make a success of it, but it's much more difficult.
Absolutely. So you've gone over just some of your highlights, and I think just when you're talking about your highlights, I think a lot of people would say that's a whole career right there, but that's only your highlights. You've got all this other stuff as well, but does that mean that 100% of the time you are able to support your lovely wife and child with acting?
God, no. I've had some really good runs where I definitely have been able to do that. Pretty early in my career, I started getting a lot of voiceovers for radio and TV advertising. And that's quite well paid, doesn't take up much of your time. And for about 10 years, I didn't have to have any other job because the voiceovers and the acting work kept me employed. Having said that, I didn't have a family then. I was only looking after myself. So that's a lot easier. And I've had some good runs. Early 90s in Adelaide, things dried up a fair bit. And I did taxi driving for about 6 months of the year for about 3 years during some quiet periods. Not good money, but very flexible. Then in 2015, I remember looking at the end of 2014, I looked ahead and there was not one single job on the horizon.
Right.
And I said to my partner, oh my God, I'm going to have to just get a job. So I put a hospitality CV together and ended up, getting 3 jobs and working flat out as a waiter and a barman for about 3 different, 2 restaurants and a yacht club.
Yeah.
And the trouble with that is that then those businesses become dependent on you if you're a good worker, and they give you more and more responsibility. So I ended up, wasn't officially an assistant manager, but I used to lock up and put the money in the safe and do all that. So then when a film comes up and they say you've got to go interstate for 5 weeks, or Faulty Towers came up and you're going to be on tour for 6 months, it's difficult because then you're letting people down. So after I came back from Faulty Towers And I was saying to everyone, I'm not going back to the bar. I'm not going back to the bar, but there was nothing else. So I ended up back in the bar, really hating it.
Yeah.
And then at the end of that year, which was 2017, I think. It was early 2017. I decided I'd start driving Uber because there's such flexibility. The money's not great, but you're totally your own boss. So if an audition comes up or I've got to go into state for work, there's no one else I have to ask. I just have to negotiate that with my family. And recently that's led to, during lockdown, I've ended up doing deliveries for a company as a private contractor. You know, they pay me very well to deliver computing equipment and mobile phones to their workers who all have to work from home. So that's, you know, what do they call it now? Your side hustle. So
yes, absolutely.
When I was driving Uber, if ever I was driving from my suburb to someone at the airport, I would say, oh, you know, I do private airport jobs from Williamstown to the airport for $50. And, you know, and people would like that because they'd know I was reliable, you know, have good conversation. And so I built up this little business of taking people to the airport. And then through that, this woman who has a business and needs computer equipment delivered, and, you know, sometimes I might have 10 brand new laptops in the car. She doesn't want any old Uber driver to say, oh, no, you only gave me 9 laptops, not 10. So
yeah. So
that's been good. And during lockdown also, I've done a lot of work with Australian Shakespeare Company. We've been doing a few schools performances via Zoom, Shakespeare performances via Zoom. And we've also been doing some conferences for drama teachers and English teachers to help them with teaching Shakespeare.
Amazing.
So
I would love to bring it back just quickly to, you know, working at bars and Uber driving and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
How do you stay, I don't think sane's the word, but how do you stay mentally, you know, like everything, self-esteem, keeping your self-esteem strong, knowing that, you know, in your soul, I'm an actor, that's what I do, but right now I'm pulling a beer.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
I think you've got to remind yourself that you're never going to be employed 100% of the time in this industry. That doesn't mean you're not talented. It doesn't mean anything. There's so much luck involved with this industry. So just remind yourself, you know, be true to yourself and say, you're still an actor. This is just a job to pay the rent, to get put food on the table. And it also helps to keep topping up with little bits of training to keep your hand in as well. Like I've done a few master classes with Howard Fine. In 2004, I went to New York to do some training with Anne Bogart's company, City Company in Suzuki and Viewpoints, and get together with people who you really connect with within the industry to read plays together. And some great things can come out of that. I remember a group of us used to get together at the Windsor Castle Hotel on a Friday night or a Saturday night and read a script. And out of that, we found one script that we thought would translate into a show, and we put that show on. I ended up directing it because the director pulled out, and was really successful. We just did it in this little space, and it was sold out. You know, you couldn't get a ticket. Then we took it to the Adelaide Fringe, and that just came out of keeping interested in your work. You know, trying to improve your skills. You know, I'm 57 now, and I'm still learning. You know, every day I'm learning. Equity now keeping up with your equity bulletin. A couple of days ago, maybe it was even yesterday, I did an American accent class online with equity. It's free to do, great teacher. And I think it was a Zoom class.
Sure.
And I think there were 169 of us doing
Oh, wow.
that Zoom class, you know. So keeping interested, keeping your hand in, finding out in your city what's going on, you know. So, for instance, La Mama Theatre in Carlton, they're a real champion of new work, and you can go and put you know, if you're just starting out, you can go and give them your CV and your headshot and tell them you're interested, and they might put you in touch with, you know, with a group who are putting on a show. And sometimes you never know where something's going to lead either. So I remember the Howard Barker story is a good case in point. He did a version of Chekhov's Uncle Vanya, which he also called Uncle Vanya, but he made a few changes, and I played the role of Uncle Vanya. The following year, we were going to take that to Sydney, to Belvoir Street upstairs, but as a co-op. So there was no guaranteed money. In fact, we didn't make any money.
Right.
At the same time as that was on, I was offered a job with State Theatre Company, touring a show I'd already done. So you're going to be on full-time wages. You're going to be on living away allowance. So you get you get per diems every day. You get your everything paid for. And it was conflict. Both shows were on the same time. And I had a really difficult choice to make.
Yeah.
Do I stay with Uncle Vanya, or do I go and do the club? One, I'm going to be paid money well. The other, I'm actually going to lose money because I'm going to be in Sydney on the bones of my ass. And I decided for the craft, for what I would learn as an actor, to stick with the Howard Barker Uncle Vanya. Right. And it's funny how things sometimes pay off many years later. So that was 97.
Yeah.
So that led to doing another Barker in 98, which led to doing the 8-hour show in 2000, which led to going to England later that year, which led to working at State Theatre Company with Judy Davis in 2004. So that decision back in 97, which cost me money, paid me back tenfold 7 years later. Absolutely. So I think if you're looking at a lot of young people coming into the industry now are coming into it with the view to becoming a celebrity.
Yes.
Rather than treating it as a craft and as something, as a career that, you know, you need to put time into, and sometimes you won't always be recognised, but it's what is your driving force behind that. So when I was at university and we were graduating, we were thinking about, it was all about ensemble and what you can achieve as a group.
Yeah.
So we were working on a show that my first year out, we went on to do that and to be paid to do that. Whereas now all the institutions, they have a graduation show where it's about the individual and it's about getting an agent.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. That's the way the industry is now. But just keep an eye on the craft and don't get seduced by celebrity.
I think that's a perfect place to end today, Sid, because I think it's exactly the kind of wisdom we need from people like you, is to make sure that we're, you know, have great integrity in the work that we're doing and the choices that we make, and know that nothing good ever comes quickly. It comes with time, comes with hard work. So thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom today. And I think it even works better when you do this with your beard, because that way you know that it's real wisdom.
You know, just before we finish up, Chantal, just wanted to say about, integrity and reputation and stuff like that is
Yeah.
to always find out the names of everybody working on the show, and I'm including crew. Very often actors forget about the crew. They forget about who might be on film and TV sets, who's the runner, who's taking you in the car.
Mm-hmm.
Get interested in everyone. What's their job? What do they do?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and find out what they treat everyone with respect. Everyone's important. We all make the show together, and that's so important. And that will pay you back and enrich you throughout your career. You know, don't be precious. See if you can help the crew. See what you can learn about the technical side of things.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Sid.
An absolute pleasure.
Such a pleasure to see your face. Hopefully I can see it in real life soon.
Yeah, indeed.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sid.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.